Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and today I'm joined by one of my co-hosts, my good friend, Zach Ingo Finch. How you doing, Zach?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. It's been... We're recording this quite late, and it's frustrating, because it's like, if there was interesting stuff that had happened, it feels like it was okay to stay up. But now I'm just really tired to talk about mainly people
Tuesday,
leaving.
mate. It's Transfer Tuesday. We stayed up, maybe some of my blind optimism coming into play. We stayed up late to make sure we were hot on the nose of any transfer action that came in last minute. And yeah, we've got a few outgoings to talk about, mate. And
Not only that, like, it's one of the things I'll get out of the way straight off the back is, like, I am seeing a lot of people act like we haven't bought anyone this window. We have.
yeah,
We have had 3 incomings. Like, it's not been today, but we have Wellington, who was a deal from forever ago, but he still came in and he played at the weekend and he played really well. We have Grombach that's come in, who I was skeptical, but he seemed to do a job on the weekend.
had a couple of shots on target.
Yeah, which, is on par, if not better, than some of our players so far this year.
Yeah, if you don't kick the ball at the goal, you don't win games. We've discussed that.
Simple as that. And obviously, we got the young French lad in the under-21s who is one for the future, which I know it's upsetting that we have a lot of ones for the future, because it seems like we're never going to reach that future. However, it means that we've done business. I think, obviously, you're going to get into the outgoings, but I think it's just a lot of people are disappointed. But remember what happened the last time we went crazy in a January window and didn't stay up and then got stuck with a bunch of players that didn't want to play the championship. So at least a lot of them here now know what they're getting into, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, well, I mean, you also missed one more incoming that we did get today on deadline day, and I am going to absolutely butcher the pronunciation, so I apologise in advance, but is it Furkan Malak from Gostepe on loan until the end of the season, joining up initially with the under-21s for us to track his development. So another one for the future, but better than nothing, right?
It is what it is. Like, this is the multi-card network thing coming into play, right? Like, they want to build up players in a specific way. We'll see how it turns out. We've already had purchases that have gone straight out on loan, and some of those might end up being good for us. I think it's just a shame that some of what I think would be considered to be our better business has gone the way that it has. But ultimately, if from a business perspective, it's worked out real well.
Yeah, and obviously, I guess to touch on and wrap up incomings, upsettingly early in the show, the rumoured deal and negotiations for Silla breaking down pretty much immediately after the deal for Sam Amamil was agreed.
That is, for me, I would be real mad if I was the people in charge of that, right? Like, that sounds to me like they were kind of like, well, we'll see if it gets over the line. And if it doesn't go over the line, then, it is what it is. I think we still potentially got that guy from Antwerp still coming in. I can't remember his name, but apparently that might be a thing that's still happening. And he might, Victor Udo, who is apparently going to be joining not the first team straight away. So another one for the future, quote unquote. So I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, so
I guess it makes sense to strengthen up our under-21s team, because they have also seen a few outgoings from this window.
yeah,
Brian Whitmarsh, Magoma, Amamil.
Yeah, so Magoma and Ameo, sorry, both of whom were sort of brought in as kind of almost coups from Tottenham, and now we've both sold them for quite large amounts of money, and now like Magoma's on loan at like Port Vale, I think. You've got Ameo going to Strasbourg. Maybe he'll do a good job there. All the best to him. It's a shame it didn't work out. there's clearly just people that are just ahead of him in the pecking order, apparently.
I mean, in some respect, did it work out? Because actually we've sold him for about 8 million profit. So
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, from a business perspective, it's worked out real well. From a player perspective, who knows? Maybe we would have preferred, a little bit preferred to have him in the team. But clearly,
he
if
did get
he
his
is,
first senior goal for the team earlier in the season, which he did set out at the start of 2024 as his ambition for the year. So
yeah.
all the
I
best to him.
wish him all the best. He's a young player who can go far. Maybe it'll be years gone by where we talk about how he was somebody that we had for a while, but he is also somebody that, like Magoma, where people have kind of acting like he's entirely come through our academy from start to finish, but did not realise that he only joined 2 or 3 years ago, and has kind of worked his way up, right? So
Yeah.
if anything, it's good business. It's just sad whenever you see a player that could be a good prospect move on to greener pastures. I don't know if I'd call visiting most places in France greener pastures.
Yeah.
Not to upset anyone in France. I forgot most of my family live there. Like, it's just
All right, and before we wrap up part one and move on to some of the other outward moves we've had today, one move that didn't go through as an outbound, Bednarak supposedly, was it a 25 million bid turned down?
Nah, I think I swear it was like 8. I think it was like £8 million to Roma, and basically we said no immediately, considering we're trying to strengthen the centre back, and they immediately went off to Galatasaray to buy somebody else.
Yeah.
So it seems like it was probably something that, for me, feels like an automatic sort of football manager style bid that you make at the beginning of the season for like no reason. Because obviously he like, was it at the beginning? Was it this year? He committed to the club for like the next couple of years, and probably to end his career here, I think he said. So I don't really see, any reason for us to sell so cheap when, like, what other centre backs do we have?
I don't think, realistically, I don't think there's a price you could name. He's such an essential part of the team, really. Basically, our only consistently good centre back. So,
unless you had a decent replacement lined up, which clearly we don't have, because we're not planning. By the sounds of it, we weren't really planning to buy anyone apart from somebody we like the look of in Strasbourg. And I wouldn't be surprised if even Silla was somebody that they went, well, he's 22, so we'll put him in the under 23s and call him one for the future.
He was a left-footed centre back, which supposedly is what we were looking for, which obviously speaks volumes, as we have, about the future of Bella Kotchap in our team. But
we might be forced into a move with Wood out, potentially Taylor Harbour-Bellis out. What else are you going to do at this point? If Stevens is out too, this is clearly why. But I'm kind of where I'm at is if we were panic buying another centre back and then we end up with like 30 going into the Championship again, like it's probably not the worst thing in the world that we've been smart about it. It's just not very exciting. That's what I think is most people are upset by. And the fact that if, the ambition was to stay up and they're backing their man, they've backed him with 3 transfers, 1 pre-arranged, 1 that isn't for his team, and he got 1 that maybe he wanted over the line, because I don't know who else is making that decision, if I'm totally honest.
That's it. Okay, right. Let's take a quick break and have a message from our partners at Zencastr. So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start podcasts, sounds great, and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so again, no real surprises coming out, but Bazouno out on loan to Standard Liège till the end of the season.
Did you see the highlights of his game against Chelsea under 21s? Did you see that? Yeah, like maybe being out is good for him.
Yeah,
getting into a team.
Probably doesn't make it in the first team over Ramsdale, but is probably our first choice goalkeeper next season. So gets him game time, gets him back fit. He's still only a nipper, like 2021, right? So
yeah. Exactly. It's one of those things where I we'll see what happens next season, because obviously if Ramsdale goes, which is probably likely, we'll end up, having then McCarthy and Lumley in goal other
Yeah.
than Baz. And in my head, you bring Baz back and put him back in the goal.
Does McCarthy have another year in him at
I
championship
don't
level? Even a
think
second
so.
choice is
He
probably
doesn't.
not.
He's even like coming in to replace Ramsdale. He wasn't fit enough to do that for the whole time Ramsdale was out. So that
Yeah,
says a lot to me that I don't think he's going to be fit enough to be our first choice goalkeeper.
yeah.
And Lumley, interesting to see what happens there. I guess I kind of feel for him. He's not been put in an ideal position, and I don't think that he's really going to have a lot of opportunity to kind of get the minutes that he probably wants going forward. I feel like when you set out your ambition to play for England and then you have some absolute howlers, it's not really ideal, is it?
No, no. And Flynn Downs was rumoured to be eyeing a move to Ipswich, which seemed to fall down. I mean,
They don't want to pay the money. Simple as that, isn't it? Like we literally signed him this season with a really
yeah,
like a long contract, and then they want to like buy him on the cheap. Like absolutely not. Like that's what contracts are nowadays, right? That's why the contracts are getting longer and longer. It's just so you have to pay the money for the players that you want. And
it's
if you're
mad
gonna
to me that we would even contemplate selling him. Like, I know that he has struggled in recent weeks and fallen out of favour with Juric for sure, but that doesn't mean that there's not a player in there that is, just as capable of slotting into that Rebo Ugochukwu
I,
role
I would be
with practice.
surprised. Well, yeah, next season for sure, because Ugochukwu is going to go back to Chelsea, and
Yeah,
he's not. We're not going to buy him. We're probably not going to have the financial power to buy him anyway. And I don't very much doubt he'll want to come full time.
yeah,
It'd be lovely, but I just don't see it happening. So then we're going to have somebody that comes into that role at that point. Juric seems to like Smallbone. Power to him. If Smallbone's performances get better, I will be happier. It's not that I don't like the lad. I just think that he's not as good as some of the other players we have.
yeah.
I
But
think that,
again, looking to next season, a
yeah,
perfectly competent championship player.
it's one of those things where, like, from a personal perspective, both him and Taylor Harwood-Bellis clearly have put their all in. Things are not going the way they've wanted it to go. You can see their frustrations on the pitch. That's starting to spill over in both performances and the amount of cards they're getting. Again, I like to think of that as being also a Russell Martin hangover of playing bravely and making tactical fouls that usually sometimes aren't tactical. They just end up being like, well, that was a waste of a yellow. I think that maybe, if it was, I'm going to go on loan for the rest of the season, sure, whatever. Like, but we're going to need him, I think, next season. You're right. Why would the club entertain it if he doesn't want to play here and their offer is big enough that I think any club will entertain any price. We've done it. We've done it once before, back when we had the lofty squad that included Virgil van Dijk, which is so weird to think about, but where we tried to be like, no, you're staying, and it was just pointless. And I don't think that, I know the manager's in charge and this and the other, but again, it's why you're seeing all of these rumours. I'm sure we'll get to Armstrong and Archer and all that kind of stuff as well. But it's ultimately, these are players that have been playing for an entire season last season, come up, were showed a lot of loyalty, and now they're being replaced by players who the new way that the new manager plays is getting the best out of them, and they don't want to be sat on a bench. So, if we get some money out of a loan deal from it, it's not the end of the world, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of us really selling anyone, but we'll have to see what happens. And by anyone, I mean any one of the people we've discussed. I'm not really bothered if some people leave because they're bad, but I'm not really going to name everyone that I think's bad. Most of the time, you can read between the lines with my opinions, or I'm vocal.
uh, yeah, Zach, you are not one to hide your opinion. I will tell you that much for free. Okay, I do want to move on to the strikers, but first, a message from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network.
The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up, broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
Okay, yeah. So I've left it till last in the hope that we would get some sort of news update through. I'm frantically refreshing Alfie House's Twitter feed, but I currently no exact word. But it looks like there is a possibility that Adam Armstrong, by the time this goes out, will be on loan to the Baggies till the end of the season. And as you mentioned earlier, Archer sort of at some point rumoured to go away, but with that Armour deal going through and the deadline passing, that's definitely not a thing, right? So, I mean, is it a surprise that we'd let him go? Is it just a shift off the wage book thing? Is he just after more game time?
Yeah, from Armstrong this season, if he does go, we don't know yet because they decide apparently taking a million years to decide it. I think he'll be disappointed if it doesn't. He clearly wants game time and probably wants to recapture the form that he had last season because it hasn't been the same. And I know that that might be changing of roles, changing of manager, all that kind of stuff. But I think the other thing is that strikers, as we discuss, are usually confidence players. Not all of them. Sometimes you can have players that aren't. If you want an example, most recently, I mentioned it in my video essay that's coming out tomorrow, is like Marcus Rashford, right? Like he had that season where he scored like 30 goals and did amazing, and then he's had seasons where he scored like three. And it's all to do with confidence and where you are in the team. If Armstrong was having an absolute blinder of a season last season and hasn't so far this season, he knows that his stock as a player is going to go down. Probably wants to kind of revitalise his career a little bit. If it's going to be on loan at Championship club for the next 6 months, sure, whatever. Would
Yeah,
probably, I'd
been a
happily
bit
take him back.
been a bit tumultuous for him. Like
Yeah,
was
100%.
basically
In out the
captain
squad, out
most
the
of the
squad.
season, now out of the squad, pretty much. Yeah, and he'll go and score goals for West Brom in the Championship because that he was the top scorer in the Championship last season. And a West Brom team that are short of goals. We'll talk later in the week about the straight of Burnley's 0-0 draws. What's fascinating is how much of a joke that is, but also the Baggies have drawn more games than Burnley this season. So
Wonderful, yeah, and that's the thing. So if they need that position needs to be filled, and we're happy to pay. It's similar to like when we sent out, when we had David Brooks on loan from Bournemouth and Rothwell. We're taking in two players from the Premier League from a team that probably aren't really going to utilise them, and then we utilise them. And arguably you can say that they are reasons that we got into the Premier League. You had some key goals. From Wethwell, Brooks was even in the playoff final. So, we can't understate
can
how
that
valuable that
Rothwell
is.
goal win our goal of the season for the team?
Yeah, I'm relatively sure it did. And that's what I mean is that, if he is not playing, because sticking him in every game from now until the end of the season, judging by the way that Juric wants to line up, Juric wants to play, he's not going to be in the team every single week. He might come on to play a bit part, when you can give him somewhere where he can get game time and potentially score. In my head, it's a no-brainer to let him go out on loan. And
Yeah,
people might go, "Oh, well, what about this season? We know it's kind of over." And I think
yeah,
that the club do, and I know that they're trying to not say that because they can't say that. They can't come out and be like, "We know we're relegated" when it's mathematically impossible, because that's really disrespectful to their new manager. And
yeah,
their new, even though Juric definitely also knows and is putting in the best that he can possibly do with the resources he has available. They haven't backed this transfer window because the last time they backed the manager over a January transfer window, we
it
ended up with
is.
players that, half of which we now still have that are doing a number now, but we ended up sending out on loan the whole of our championship season. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's frustrating. Like, I understand the frustration. I understand the fact that people don't think we're being ambitious. Who are we targeting who wants to come here? And if there are players sat on our bench that are not getting game time, that are being in a club that is making them depressed, why not let them go somewhere where they get game time and can become a better player for us next year? Because a lot of these guys are on long-term deals, which means that
yeah.
unless they're going to pay to buy them if they come up or they have the money, it's not a problem. So yeah, I
I'm
get
with you.
people's frustration,
It
but
makes sense as well, this armour move, and it's got to be a good thing for Cameron Archer. It's more
yeah,
likely that he'll get some minutes in the team, and to me that just is logical. It makes sense, right? Like you say, in the scheme of things, the season is we're relegated. We might have take this surge from this win and do something and maybe finish as high as like 18th, great. Let's hope so. Let's hope we win every game. Perfect. But realistically, we're probably getting relegated. Adam Armstrong is a known quantity, and is a known quantity for next season. Cameron Archer is a young player who shows real signs of promise to me, and I still think we should be playing him more than we have been. But
Yeah,
this
agreed.
is moving space so that he will get more minutes, and maybe we will see some of that development come into play.
Or it will fall through because they're all too busy faffing about the paperwork before 11 o'clock, in which case we've still got, a relatively large squad full of options, and admittedly some of those options haven't really been great, and there are definitely areas we probably could have worked on strengthening. But yeah, I think that I also recently saw a tweet from the Saints Network, one of the other podcasts in the Southampton. We're talking about how all these people saying we've not signed anyone were all the same people that talked about how amazing Wellington's performance was over the weekend. And I'm like, yeah, like I don't know, I think people were just expecting some sort of statement signings because we've done that in a couple of years, and it's like, well,
We're
how's that
just not,
worked out for us?
we're just not in a position to do that, right?
No,
Like we're whether we're close to being in trouble or not, we're one dodgy purchase away from PSR, regardless, because everyone is the state of the PSR rules at the moment. And like you said, we threw so much money, it nearly crippled us completely financially, and probably is most of the reason we can't go and splash out is because we're still recovering from that panic buy transfer window with Nathan Jones. So you just can't do that again. You just have
it's,
to suck it up.
and the
It is
thing
what it is.
is how attractive are we? Like again,
Not
one
at
of the
all.
players we have
Not
got
even a
on
little
loan
bit.
is again the reason that he wanted to go out on loan, despite being a bottom of the League One in France team, because he wasn't getting game time is the main reason he's come here. Like that is what, like, we were having to convince someone in a similar position from a similar club in another league in another country to come here, and the only way we could do that was with game time. Which who else wants to join at the moment? Like again, when we become a attractive championship club like that could potentially climb up the ladder, I actually think it'll open more doors for people willing to come. And I think that we have a scale. If we're getting a director of football and a new director of football who has international experience, that's worked across groups across Europe, if it's the one we think it is, then that means that there's a lot of places that he'll have knowledge of to pick from, and we can see where we are next season. But I just, as much as depressing as it is, I don't think that it's realistic to have gone all out today, exactly like you said, and I'm fine with that. I think that the players we brought in, I look forward to seeing them play in the main team eventually, and the players that are going out on loan obviously make sense in my mind, and the players we've sold, yeah, I'm a little bit sad about, but it's good business at the end of the day, isn't it? Like 8 million quid for someone that's played like 3 times, regardless of whether or not could have been a great player for us, is still, in my opinion,
Yeah,
good
good
business.
business for an unknown prospect.
Yeah,
Realistically,
and it's just, I think everyone wants that spark of hope, and that it kind of, I think if you still thought that we were going to stay up, like you thought they were going to throw the kitchen sink at it, but I think that like the realistic prospect is we're probably not, and it's absolute insanity to do the same thing that we did last
yeah,
time again, when instead we can build and strengthen properly, potentially with a manager that already has a rapport when we go into the championship. If Juric stays, I
yeah,
imagine he will. It was an 18 months. I think he kind of wants to. I think
yeah,
he looks forward to a project, and who
yeah.
knows? We'll have to see how it works out.
And look, we're rapidly running out of time, but I want to end on a high note, and I want to talk about something that hasn't happened today, which at the start of January would probably have been the biggest couple of wins we were hoping for, but actually we got a decent win at the weekend. So, but Diblin and Carl Walker Peters, name's not even banded about today, just guaranteed stay until the end of the season.
Yeah,
Or
and that's good.
some Turkish windows still open, but let's be honest, that's not on the cards.
It's yeah, Dibbling definitely not. That'll be great. We'll have him to the end of the season, and then if he goes in the summer, it'll be for a big bank. If not, then he'll stay with us and get to develop and have a lot of game time in the Championship. Kyle Walker-Peters will probably go at the end of his contract. He's not signed a new one. He'll go on free. I don't really blame him at all.
No, not even a little bit.
Fair play to the guy.
And if he does have a change of heart over the next 6 months and signs a contract and stays on, even better. But I'm completely, fully behind him letting that contract run down, going and getting a big payday somewhere else, and no ill feeling towards Kyle Walker-Peters leaving in that manner whatsoever, because he stayed and is still regularly one of the only players that puts in 100% every time he's on the pitch. So I'll bang
Agreed.
that drum all the way. And that's it.
It will be okay. It might have not been exciting. It might have not been fireworks, but it will be okay. We will fight another day, even if it's not in this league.
That's it, mate. And now we've got a whole 7 days to try and work out how to tactically analyse performances and go back to the Tactics Tuesdays.
It's all right. Our co-host Oscar might be joining you, mate, because as an actual coach of football, he might be able to talk to you a little bit better than the way that I line up the dots in my head when I play Football Manager. So,
Perfect. Well, we look forward to that. Okay, thank you very much for listening to us today. We will be back tomorrow with Wildcard Wednesday, where Zach has a real treat lined up for us, which I've titled An Ode to Hope. So
I like that.
So join us for that. It is a wonderful episode. I look forward to sharing it with you. What did you think of the transfer business? I still think it's a net positive. Let us know in the comments. Is that just my blind optimism? Probably. Until next time, we're on all the socials. Catch us on the new Global Sports Podcast Network, YouTube, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.